Hi friends! I hope this isn't a shocker, but everyone has cancer cells. Yes, you heard right. Your body is constantly forming cells that could turn into cancer. And you have a lot of them already. So do I. So why doesn't everybody have the symptoms of cancer? Well, the answer lies in your immune system, a 24/7 guardian that babysits every cell in your body. But here's the catch. You have to activate it. And today we're going to talk about how you can naturally activate your immune system, what foods and lifestyle changes support this, and why prevention is always better than cure. So grab a cup of tea, make sure that it's green, and let's unlock the secrets of your immune system. I have here a few foods that I eat daily to boost my immune system. But before I talk about them, let's start with the basics. Now remember, I'm not your doctor, so if you're concerned, talk with your own medical doctor. Your immune system is your body's first responder. It's made out of a complex network of cells, tissues, and organs that work together to protect you from infections and abnormal cells like cancer. Now, every single cell in your body has a potential to meet a germ or turn into cancer. And sometimes that germ actually turns your cells into cancer. Needless to say, if you can boost your immune system in the right way, you can actually eliminate both. Your immune system is your body's personal defense force. Its job is to identify and eliminate rogue cells and foreign agents that don't follow the rules. Cancer cells are like rebellious teenagers. They mutate, they multiply, and sometimes they sneak out and evade detection. And they like to stay under the radar. And this is where a competent immune system can make a world of difference. Your immune cells are the invisible unsung heroes, but they too can be destructive. Heard of autoimmune disease? This is why you have to take charge of building your dream team, which need to include natural killer cells, the hitmen that identify and destroy infected and abnormal cells, including cancer cells. Now, did you ever watch James Bond? I think of natural killer cells like multiple 007s. The more 007s you have scouting about and taking out cancer cells, the safer your body will be. And number two are T cells. These are soldiers that have great memories and they remember specific threats and attack them aggressively when they show up again. This is like M, James Bond's boss. Actually, I think she was in charge of all the 00 agents. And number three are macrophages. They are the garbage collectors, the cleanup crew. They clean out debris and signal for reinforcements. So they are like the 00 agents that support M and 007 to help scout out for cancer cells. There are billions of these cells. So for the system to work, it needs the right fuel, which are micronutrients from your food that most Americans aren't eating. And for those who are, well, they simply aren't eating enough of it. And that's the catch. Your immune system needs the right nutrients to support its function optimally. It doesn't just work automatically, even though people expect it to. When was the last time you heard someone say, I can't figure out why I keep getting sick? So let's talk about some of the foods that I eat to activate my 007 cells, natural killer cells. So number one are these frozen berries. California doesn't grow blueberries. Blueberries require acidic soil with a pH of about 4.5 to 5. And where I live, it's clay. And apparently blueberries also need well-draining soils rich in organic matter. However, I have a friend from Bible study who figured out how to grow blueberries, but it's probably not so practical for the average Californian farmer. So we get all of our blueberries imported from the Northwest during the summer and internationally during the winter. I have an issue eating internationally grown blueberries due to the different pesticides and heavy metal regulations, because collecting either one can activate cancer cell growth. So I stick to blueberries in the States whenever I can. And that's why in the winter I buy frozen blueberries. However, if push comes to shove, some blueberries are better than no blueberries. Now, take a look at that purple color. That's a food dye. They're called anthocyanins. These are natural dyes found in plants. And these compounds, they actually enhance natural killer cell activity. Studies show that regular blueberry consumption can significantly improve your natural kill cell numbers. And this number changes based on your body's stress. Know anybody who are an exercise guru? I always encourage people to eat more blueberries to help them repair tissue after a strenuous bout of exercise. And I myself am trying to increase my exercise. However, you can't overdo it. I did a half marathon years ago and got myself sick training for the event. I didn't eat the right amount of blueberries that I needed to withstand the stress. And you know, when you exercise that long, you actually will half your natural killer cells. And that's the thing with your immune system. You literally have the power to reduce or boost it depending on your lifestyle. And it's really hard to keep boosting my immune system them consciously because my brain always makes me do things that aren't so good for me. For a long time, I was actually against eating powdered food. And when I nursed my first child, I couldn't make enough breast milk, so I had to give him powdered infant formula. And my son, he had the most evil eye staring at me as he was drinking the baby formula. And then I tasted it and I understood how he felt. It's definitely not something I would voluntarily drink. Now, I know a lot of adults who have to drink liquid food because they need to eat through feeding tubes. I know a lot of people who want to drink protein shakes. Now, protein shakes are a modern invention that started in the 1950s. However, concentrated whey protein has been a byproduct of cheese making for centuries. Hippocrates actually used it in ancient Greece. However, the average lifespan of a person during ancient Greece was 35 years. Today, some of us are only living twice as long. And when you compare cancer rates from country to country, there could be a 70-fold difference. And take, for example, the rates of prostate cancer. People living a Western lifestyle, like in North America, Australia, Northern Europe, they have a higher rate of prostate cancer than people from Africa and Asia. And in fact, I was literally taught that every man in America will have prostate cancer at the end of their life. Now, it may not cause the end of their life, but they will have it. Well, I found out that's not true. That's only true if you live in America, but it's not true for people who live in Africa and Asia. So what's the difference? Well, for one, a big factor is dairy consumption. People who eat more dairy have an increased risk of prostate cancer. I remember those commercials saying that how dairy was good for our bones, and we all assumed it's because it was high in calcium. Well, apparently it's not so good for our bones, but they do make people grow taller if you drink dairy at a younger age. You will actually grow taller than people who don't. But it turns out that may not be a good thing for your bones. Countries with a higher rate of dairy consumption have a higher rate of osteoporosis. And it turns out people who get most of their calcium from dairy are at a higher rate of getting prostate cancer. But calcium isn't necessarily the issue, because if you get your calcium from non-dairy sources, you don't have a higher rate of prostate cancer. In fact, it may be protective. We do know hormones accelerate cancer growth, and there's a hormone called Insulin-Like growth factor 1 that is boosted with the ingestion of animal protein, such as animal meats and dairy. And the more dairy you drink, the higher your IGF-1 levels. But that's not all. The casein protein in dairy also can promote cancer growth in cell cultures. And it does so by upregulating a growth enzyme called TOR. And I mean, this all makes sense because dairy is meant for a calf to grow 40 times faster than a human baby. Dairy is literally packed with all-natural hormonal growth promoters to promote the growth of a calf into a giant cow. We aren't cows, so we're not meant to grow at that rate. But also, if you're watching this video, you're probably no longer growing tall. But our cells, nevertheless, constantly are changing and growing all the time. I mean, think about it. When you cut yourself, you will have new cells. That is growing to repair that cut. When you move, you will have microscopic injuries in your muscles, which will cause you to be sore, and you're growing to repair that tissue. And under normal circumstances, this is natural, no big deal. You'll be able to repair yourself. Now think about how milk is produced. People artificially keep high levels of growth hormones so that female cows continue to produce milk unnaturally. And when you're given these growth hormones, these medicines will reach their body fluid, which is dairy. When you drink dairy, you're literally drinking a body fluid that signals to your body to grow. And that's the thing with cancer cells. They're not a problem if it's just one cell. It's only a problem when they multiply in an uncontrolled, unregulated fashion. Now, normally our tissue naturally will grow and repair every day. This is so that we can repair leaks and cracks under normal wear and tear so that it doesn't become a crater and we don't break down. But these repairs can get messed up. Have you ever had a home repair gone wrong? Once had a leaky faucet, so I called the insurance company who sent a plumber to repair it. And indeed, he did make the faucet stop leaking. However, he didn't quite put the handlebar right, and I had to move the handle around several times to find the exact angle at which the faucet would turn off. And on top of that, he offset the handlebar by 0.5 centimeter. And I told him, how is this fixing the faucet? Well, he basically said it no longer leaks, so it's fixed. Now, obviously, he was a sucky plumber, so I fired him and I got myself a new plumber. The first plumber just wanted to get by in life. And that's the thing. We're eating a lot of foods that help us just to get by in life. We may be full and satisfied, but we're leaving a lot of gaps in our health. And that's why it's important to seek foods that help us regulate and stop mutating cells, like green tea. And many of you have asked what's the difference between matcha, regular green tea, and then tea. They are definitely not the same. In fact, tea may not have any green tea in it at all, as tea can be made from many different edible plants. Some of my favorites are peppermint tea, chamomile tea, hibiscus tea, which have their own unique benefits, but they aren't green tea unless it is specified. Now, when you're drinking green tea, that refers to a specific plant, a specific tree called Camellia sinensis. It is an evergreen tree. That means it has leaves all year round. There's actually more than 90 species of green tea that is grown naturally from Nepal to Taiwan. Now, green tea is originally from China. China is still the world's largest green tea producer, making billions of tons a year. So apparently, drinking green tea was an accidental discovery. Legend has it that a Chinese emperor named Shennong was sitting beneath a green tea tree as his servant was boiling some water to drink. And accidentally, some of the tea leaves fell into his drinking water and flavored it. And when he tried it, he found it very refreshing. And that's how the Chinese began drinking tea. However, if you go to India, they may have a different story. They believe that Buddha was the first man who drank tea. And he apparently had 7 years of sleepless nights until he tried some green tea leaves, which made him drowsy. Now, green tea does not make me drowsy because this is my only cup of caffeine for the day. And if I drink it after 12, I can't sleep all night. However, the first official recording of tea was written by the Emperor Shen in 59 BC. But it wasn't until several hundred years later that green tea became China's national drink. And from there, it spread to Japan and the rest of Europe. There are several types of green tea. Sencha is the most popular Japanese green tea. It's basically the least bitter and has a deep green color. It is the first crop of the season, so it's milder. Bancha is a lower grade of sencha, and here they include coarse leaves and stalks. Gyokuru is the finest green tea in Japan. It has to be cultivated in the shade for about 2 weeks, and that gives it a different flavor than regular green tea. Now, matcha is a type of green tea used in tea ceremonies. Matcha is literally the product of grinding dried tea leaves into a fine powder. There are actually more teas in this, but these are the most popular versions of green tea that you will find in the supermarket. I was blessed to be able to find a green tea farmer and to get some fresh sencha tea. This is actually a farmer and a roaster of teas. Tea production is a big deal in China. Actually, I went to the world's tea capital one year. I think it was 2019. And at that time, I was able to meet a exclusive farmer and roaster of green tea. And she was telling me how her husband's family actually has been producing green tea for several generations. And they taught her how to do it. So now she was selling it to exclusive clients. And I was only able to get some because my friend knew a friend who then purchased his tea from that farmer. I mean, it's that exclusive. And her tea box, I mean, it was really tiny. It was like about this big, and it cost like $80 for a little bottle of tea. And I was telling people, wow, it's so expensive. But apparently, good green tea can be even more expensive. So she was showing me how you can tell the quality of the tea based on its color and its taste. I mean, I couldn't tell, but she was the expert. And so young, fresh sencha green tea leaves are the lightest flavor because it's her first one of the season. And she was also telling me about pesticides, how in the beginning of the season, there's actually less bugs so that they don't generally spray until towards the end of the season. So they do spray pesticides on green tea, I guess. And it was really unique because I saw fields like hills, mountainsides full of green tea trees, and people would pick them by hand, right, in their hats, in their baskets. And it was just amazing that, a lot of times, like on TV, I just see commercial growers picking our fruits and vegetables with machines. But back there, they are picking each leaf by hand. I mean, they're such small leaves. It's very delicate. I am so impressed that they have still maintained that tradition. And the tea did taste special. In fact, that tea could flavor 6 cups of water, right? Unlike the teas that I buy here in the States. So my dad was a big tea drinker, but he actually preferred black tea, which is fermented green tea. And he believed that tea was a health-promoting drink, like most of China. Now, the benefits of tea for both mental and physical health has been passed along for centuries, both verbally and in books, long before we have the science that prove that tea does indeed actually increase our activity of our immune cells, including natural killer cells and CD4 T cells. And on top of that, we have clinical studies that support green tea can help reduce DNA damaged cells. And in fact, this study in Japan showed that people who drank more green tea had half the recurrence of colonic polyps, and the polyps that did return were 25% smaller. And green tea contains a lot of beneficial ingredients like EGCG, or epigalactocatechin gallate. EGCG actually can boost natural killer cell activity and reduce inflammation in the body. Hi friends, I am so thrilled that you want to take charge of your health and take charge of your food. Now, I know nutrition can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. And I'm here to support you in this lifelong journey. So if you point your camera app to this QR code, it'll take you to a link for a free handout that I created just for you. And if you like it, if you want to see other handouts, please go to the link in my show notes, and then you can leave me your feedback on what I could do to help you in your journey. Okay, back to the video now. Really, every time you're eating anything, you are activating or suppressing your own immune cells. Now, plant leaves, stems, and seeds all contain a plethora of ingredients that are immune modulators. Have you heard of cardamom? It is an aromatic seed of a plant in the ginger family, and people use it medicinally around the world to relieve irritable bowel syndrome, intestinal gas, and spasms and heartburn. My son once made Japanese curry with cardamom, and it was delicious. And cardamom actually also has anti-cancer activity because it enhances the activity of natural killer cells, even though it doesn't directly increase its numbers. So every time I eat cardamom, I know I'm converting my natural killer cells into super natural killer cells. It's kind of like how Clark Kent transforms into Superman, or how Peter Parker becomes Spider-Man. Yeah, my kids really like superhero movies, and I used to actually watch the Justice League cartoons, and I really liked how they all work together to defeat evil. And food to me works like that. And when you pair the right foods together, they become one powerful tool for you to combat so many diseases. And that's why it's good to eat black pepper, because actually black pepper with cardamom enhances even more natural killer cell activity, more than if you ate black pepper alone. So I think cardamom should replace salt shakers, and people should have a cardamom shaker and a pepper shaker on their table instead. There's actually many plants that have beneficial properties against cancer. And amazingly, we live in North America where we have an abundant amount of berries. Blackberries, black raspberries, cranberries, raspberries, strawberries. But in other regions of the world, there's also bilberries, black currants, lignon berries, and cloudberries. And berries, they don't just look pretty. They're actually pretty good tasting. And they're really good for our immune system because these pigments are called anthocyanins. They also have quercetin, which are also found abundantly in onions and apple skins. Now, quercetin has been shown to be active against lung cancer cells. And notice how I said apple skins and not apple juice? Every year around the world, tons of apple skins are thrown away because people just want the juice. But if you actually took that peel and put it in the blender and then drip some of that juice on prostate and breast cancer cells in a petri dish, you will see that it stops growing. And this is because apple skins contain a suppressor protein called Maspin that are already in cancer cells. So cancer cells are programmed to have an off switch, but that off switch needs to be turned on. So that Maspin is a tumor suppressor gene. And when suppressor genes are activated, then the tumor starts growing. Apples themselves contain so many antioxidants such as catechins, epicatechins, cyanidins, and procyanidins. And it's been known since the 1990s that an apple a day can keep an oncologist away. So I make it a point to eat a lot of apples. I just bought 2 bags today because I can eat a bag a day. Because apples during apple seasons are delicious. Apples are cheap, they're easy to store and transport. And across the world, the more apples people eat, the lower the risk of breast cancer, lung cancer, oral cancer, colon cancer, and renal cancer. It's really amazing how technology has allowed us to propagate information, right? Like this YouTube platform. However, there's so much information that the good stuff is lost in the weeds. And people are so focused on screening early, which I think has a role. But if you intervene even earlier, then you can avoid all these chronic diseases, because we know all these diseases, they start a decade before our radars are on. But the reality is we can't screen everyone. We don't have enough doctors. And if you're already at that end stage, you need more than just screening. However, on a population basis, I think it's more economical and more sustainable to work way before then on prevention. Because theoretically, if prevention is effective, then there's nothing to screen. And if you think about it, around the world, in developing world, they're not screening for cancer. They don't have the technology or the manpower to do it. And they also don't have our astronomical cancer rates. And we've known for decades that lots of things in nature have anti-cancer effects. And yet we're turning away from eating natural foods and turning towards modern Frankenstein-created engineered inventions, believing that they are all natural because they have pretty packaging. We're eating engineered gummified food, believing that's fruit. There's no fruit or gummies in nature. There's nothing natural about a gummy bear. So these foods that I'm talking about are super important to eat on a daily basis, not only because they activate our natural killer cells, but also because they increase our blood flow. The bottom line is, if you lose blood flow, you're going to lose tissue. The natural killer cells have no place to travel. So before you see black, which is basically gangrene, your body will go through stages of inflammation. And its ability to repair to prevent that gangrene will dictate whether or not you see that gangrene. Now, if it's unable to repair, then that leads to irreversible DNA damage. It prevents your immune cells from taking care of those mutated cells. Because if you have no blood flow, your immune cells can't get to the problem area. And this is the reason why people who have high blood pressure are more susceptible to getting various cancers. So take blood flow seriously, because it literally is your lifeline. Having a close enough to normal blood pressure is just not going to be acceptable by your body in the long run. Because it just takes one cancer cell to create its own hostile environment to evade your immune system. And by the time we can find that cancer, or you can feel that cancer, it's already fortified itself with strong defenses, right? That's why it's thriving. And that's why prevention and early intervention is so crucial. Did you know that many cancer drugs actually originated from plants? Taxol, derived from the Pacific yew tree, disrupts cancer cell division. Vincristine and vinblastine are from the Madagascar periwinkle, which are used to treat leukemia. Etoposide is from the mayapple plant, which targets cancer cell DNA. Brings another meaning to the statement, plants are trying to kill you, doesn't it? The dose makes the poison. These chemotherapy agents are from plants, but concentrated at an abnormally high level that are not achievable when you eat an edible plant. Now, the Madagascar periwinkle is not edible at all, but a ripened mayapple fruit is the only part of the plant that is edible. And if you think about it, all plants have both poisonous and beneficial ingredients. And some of those poisonous ingredients at such tiny doses are actually your friend to kill cancer cells. But any ingredient can become poisonous when you have too much of it. And this is a problem of ultra-processed engineered foods. Companies are concentrating chemicals like sugar and starch, fruit extracts, sugar substitutes from plants, and pretending that is all natural. When you eat a ginormous amount of concentrated chemicals, you can be sure that you will have biological side effects. Everything you eat is a chemical input, whether or not it is food. But when you eat all natural plants in its whole food state, there are so many different nutrients trapped in a fiber shell, injected with water because it's hydrated, right? If you eat hydrated, fresh plants, that none of it is concentrated, so you don't have the concentrated side effects. And that's the difference between people who eat food as medicine versus people who eat ultra-processed engineered foods and take medicines to counteract the effects of the ultra-processed ingredients. Now, if you're eating a typical American diet, you're eating 70 pounds of table sugar or the chemical sucrose every year. There's nothing natural about eating 70 pounds of a single chemical that has been purified out of its natural state, even if it looks pretty like in a cake or a cookie. Every chemical has a therapeutic window in which, if you exceed that level, you will have adverse events. And this is also true for sugar substitutes. All sugar substitutes will change your gut microbiome, even at very tiny doses. Your gut microbiome is your largest immune system in your body. And you're not going to have a healthy body unless you have a healthy gut microbiome. If you want to jumpstart regulating and modulating your immune system, you have to start with your gut. So the next time you go shopping, remember that when you buy those apples and eat those apples, or the broccoli or broccoli sprouts, you're getting lots of nutrients like quercetin, sulforaphane, that augment natural killer cell and T cell activity to help you suppress cancer cells. Now, I find it incredible that the amount of produce that Americans are consuming hasn't changed for decades, yet we have astronomically increased our consumption of ultra-processed foods, thinking that all we need to do is get our calories and proteins in. We are consuming at least 50% of our diet as ultra-processed engineered foods. So the reason why your grandparents is living to his 90s is because he didn't grow up eating abundant amount of ultra-processed food in his youth. That didn't start until the 1960s, until after the government started subsidizing our food system. So we are the generation that was raised on ultra-processed foods since we were children. And this is why we've now seen people metabolically overweight and getting a higher rate of cancer. We're to focus on calories and weight and missing the ball on the areas that we are desperately struggling with. Eating the phytonutrients that don't give us calories but protect our DNA and suppress the growth of DNA mutated cells. And the sooner you can get off the ultra-processed engineered diet, the sooner you can reclaim your health, activate your immune system, take control of your future. Or you can just wait for definitive proof and succumb to modern diseases caused by our engineered food. Now, what I've mentioned in this video is just a tip of the iceberg because there's so many micronutrients that are critical for your immune system to work optimally. They are, after all, just like any other cell, requiring certain basic essential nutrients. If you want to learn more about how you can replenish what most people miss in their diet, watch the next video.